Hello and welcome to Don't Ask Me Shit, the podcast, where we stop pretending, stop sugarcoating, and stop dancing around the real issues. I am Coach Dory, your stress management and relationship recovery coach, here to help people heal from toxic family, toxic friendships, and toxic romantic partners. I'm your truth teller and your friend who loves you enough to be honest with you, even when it stings a little. This is a place where the conversations that people want to avoid, we can have them here. We talk about relationships, accountability, self-sabotage, healing, boundaries, and all the messy stuff that folks don't want to talk about. And just remember, you can always ask Coach Dory, but if you're not ready to do the work, don't ask me shit because I'm not here to co-sign your excuses. I am here to help you grow. So today we have a very special guest. We have Gazik Haya, and they can be described as an autistic AFAB, and they have them explain that to me. AFAB, trans, non-binary, queer, white, Jewish, mystic, seeker, neurocomplex, parent, ET experiencer, and SSP slash parts work slash coach, amongst other things. Like I said, it's a lot here, and I'm not sure what all of this means. So I'm going to give them an opportunity to explain. I'm going to welcome them and give them an opportunity to explain all of that to us so we can have a very good understanding. So, welcome, Gazik. How are you doing today?
I love that. I'm so well, and I'm so grateful to be here with you. And I don't, like, what are we, right? Like those
Yeah,
descriptions. It's like, how much do you want to know? How much do you not want to know? What it is,
exactly.
like, am I a separate human, right? We talked at the beginning about how actually the pronouns that feel the most correct for me are we and our, because I feel like we are here apparently on this earth, but like I'm in this body and you're in that one, and like, what does
Right.
that mean? I don't know, but
And the truth is, if we all actually sit down and think about what we all consist of, our knowledge, our years, all of our
yeah,
descriptions would be like that. I
yeah,
mean, we're so
right?
complex.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like I was thinking the other day I was going to my kid's soccer game.
Uh-huh.
And there's so much like chit chat that happens with like these
Mhm.
other parents, right? And I do not have chit chat skills. That is one of my like strongest autistic traits is I'm gonna just like, I loved
Right.
your intro too. Like, don't ask me shit because like if you ask me anything, I'm gonna start talking about all of recorded history and what all the how the patriarchy and white supremacy has affected the fact that you are not sure if you're going to give your kid peanut butter and jelly today. Like I would, that's what I will be talking about, right? It's just like I'm a mess. But yeah, AFAB, most
Uh-huh.
people would say AFAB, um,
Okay.
and it means assigned female at birth.
Okay.
So that thing that happens when babies are born, where
Right.
doctors do what I love, some people refer to it as like gender hieroglyphics. They like
Uh-huh.
look at the genitalia and they're like, let's call this one a boy, right? Let's
Right.
call this one a girl. And like it really is super random, because we all have the same like basic stuff going on
Mhm.
in that area, and it's just like slightly configured different ways,
Right.
and has different function, and how it is configured may not even represent what's going on inside or genetically, and so
Right.
doctors are literally just guessing. And so in the trans community, we often offer that to say, like, this is
Mhm.
what I was assigned at birth, because it helps people to understand information about how I was raised. So I
Okay.
was raised and socialized as a girl. Um, and that gives a little bit of background on me, what I've been through. It also gives a little background on some of my like physical experiences, where my hormones go, like what I've dealt with in terms of experiences I've had in this body.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it can be assigned female at birth, it can be assigned male at birth, it can be intersex is another one. So, AFAB, AMAB, and intersex are all different things that happen
Okay.
at birth.
Now that you've explained that, does that actually change? Do people change the way that they relate to you once they understand that, or
You
is
know,
it
sure.
yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely. I don't think that anyone that I've ever experienced has wondered what I was assigned at birth. I think I
Hmm.
am most often gendered as a woman, and
Hmm.
people like experience me as a woman most of the time. Um, but maybe if there was someone who didn't see me or hear me
Hmm.
and they were curious, that would give them more information. I don't know. Yeah, it's just another one of those like, tell me about who you are. Like it's one of those characteristics that has been
Yeah,
associated with me. Um, so that's the one that I heard you not recognizing. Were there others that you didn't recognize? Maybe
yeah.
SSP?
Yes, that one. That
SSP is a listening modality. It stands for the Safe and Sound Protocol.
okay.
And it is something that I use in my work to support people with nervous system regulation. And it's really cool. It actually works with your vagus nerve and increases flexibility, decreases auditory sensitivity, increases social engagement. It's a bottom up approach. So it doesn't involve like cognitive or thinking. You don't like try to do it, it works directly with your vagus nerve, which can
Hmm.
be really nice for folks who have had a lot of trauma or who are neurodiverse and might have like a lot going on with their actual nervous system that doesn't line up with their actual thinking and values. So it could be like, I really value, feeling safe and empowered and confident, but then I get out there with someone that my body perceives as threatening, and all of a sudden I'm back to my, people pleasing, I'm back to my codependency, I'm back to my maybe I'm lying to keep myself safe. I'm backing away from social experiences to keep myself safe. So a lot of us who have been in therapy for like decades and know everything and have like read every book, but then we get out into the world and our nervous system's like, never mind, and freaks
Right,
out. Um,
right,
it's a really nice tool because it can support the body into reconnecting with safety when we've been through a lot of trauma or have neurodiversity that makes our wiring more sensitive.
right. It's interesting because when you started saying that, even without all the therapies and things, well, when you do all the work that you do, you know yourself, you're confident and whatever. But when you get back into those family dynamics,
Yeah.
it's like you always fall back into the same place that you were. If you were the kid that was bullied in the
Yep.
family, even though you're bigger than everybody now,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
still get treated that way. That is so crazy. I never
Yeah.
even related it to our nervous
Yeah.
system being
Yeah.
familiar with that.
Yeah. The
Oh,
nervous system works on predictive processing, right?
yeah,
So it takes the old data and
yeah,
then it finds where it matches the current situation and it tells you this is safe or this is
right.
dangerous. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, learning things already. But, looking over your introduction, and is there anything else you'd like to add that I did not go into? You cleared those up, but tell us a little bit about yourself other than those
Mm.
things that you shared.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I have in common with a lot of other people is for most of my life, I felt like being alive was too hard,
Mm-hmm.
and not worth it enough.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I really care about communicating when I have a chance to is that I think there's no too far gone in life. I
Okay.
think we all are capable of creating a life that's really worth living for us.
Right.
Um, I was one of those cases where I was told by medical providers, psychiatrists, and psychologists that I was either going to die by suicide or end up institutionalized long term. And that's not the case. I am now living a beautiful life, doing work that's really meaningful and aligned for me, and feeling like I genuinely feel good about being here and finding joy and connection. And so I do think that that's possible for anyone.
Okay. So you mentioned, well, one, I want to know, when were you actually diagnosed with um, autism? When were you diagnosed as autistic?
Yeah, I was only diagnosed with autism like 6 weeks ago,
Oh, wow.
formally.
Okay.
But
Is this something that you kind of already suspected or knew?
yeah,
When did you start suspecting it?
I would have been able to tell you as soon as I started talking that I was different, that something
Uh-huh.
was like way harder for me than everybody else. But I didn't have language for it. So I've been, trying to explain that for my whole life, pretty much,
Right.
that like felt like everybody was speaking a different language. I felt like I must be from a different planet,
Mm,
that like maybe I was adopted, maybe, I was trying to figure it out for my
right.
whole life. I was described as like really shy and really sensitive when
Hmm.
I was super young. And then as I got into puberty and early like young adulthood, I was given every, mental like health type diagnosis. So they called me everything from borderline to bipolar, rapid cycling bipolar, anxiety, depression, all of those.
Right.
I was also like in my 30s, diagnosed with traumatic brain injury, post concussive
Hmm.
syndrome, because I did have three head injuries in my first 3 years. So, two when
Oh,
I was
wow.
15 months old, and one when I was three.
Wow.
Um, and so those affect, sensory sensitivities and emotional regulation, having had a brain injury.
Hmm.
But it didn't quite answer all of the social difficulties that I was having,
Right.
communication challenges, just like never understanding humor, taking
Hmm.
everything so literally, some of my really intense rejection sensitivity and justice sensitivity that previously were maybe called me just being too much or too sensitive
Yeah.
or um, codependent. And, all of it really makes a ton of sense through the lens of autism.
Right. Right. Right.
So I'm super grateful that I went to school for speech pathology and I was given a grant to study autism through
Hmm.
the Department of Education. And right away, I was like, oh, these are my people, right? And over the years of working primarily with neurocomplex folks, I have been like, yep, this is me. And then because so many of my clients were interested in evaluation and sort of understanding what that experience would be like, I decided to
Right.
go through formal evaluation and diagnosis myself.
Okay. Alrighty.
Yeah.
And do you work as a coach now also,
Hmm.
correct?
Coach
Is
slash speech pathologist. It's a little bit
okay.
of an overlap.
Yeah. Are most of your clients, I would think that they're aligned with you. Do you work with a lot of neurodivergent clients and things? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anywhere from somebody who feels like they're just really sensitive
Right.
to someone who might connect with the diagnosis. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that the doctors and therapists and things said that you would either die by suicide or what was the other thing you said?
End up institutionalized long
End up
term.
institutionalized. So, and I know that you and I have talked previously, so I do know that there were suicide attempts. Can you tell us a little bit about those? Like, how old were you when you experienced this?
Yeah, so I really was questioning life from young, so 10 or 11,
Mm-hmm.
really feeling like this was too hard and something was really wrong with me, from kind of always, but especially once early puberty started.
Mm-hmm.
It's not uncommon for trans and gender nonconforming people to have a really hard time in puberty.
Right.
Um, but sort of like all that gender stuff was coming online. My body was changing, which was super uncomfortable for me. I started menstruating. That was like really hard for me.
Right.
Um, and I started noticing that I was attracted to all kinds of people and not just the
Mhm.
people that I was supposed to be.
Right.
Um, and I was raised in a super duper conservative evangelical Christian household.
Mhm.
And so, and community, I went to a Baptist school as
Okay.
well. And so it was like really not okay to be queer in any way. They weren't talking about gender or trans people at all in the
Right.
80s
Right.
in that community. So I didn't even know, I didn't have that language to know that it was about gender as well. Um, but, gay people or homosexuals is what they would have said.
Right.
Were going straight to hell. And
Right.
that was just heartbreaking for me because one of my lifelines growing up was actually the connection I felt with a higher power. And at
Mhm.
that time, I would have called that God or Jesus. And I felt really sincere. I really aligned with the teachings of Jesus in terms of how to care for the others, right? The people who
Right.
are treated poorly, the poor, the widows, the orphans, the tax collectors and the prostitutes, like those, I was like, yes, Jesus, I
Yeah.
loved that. And so it was really painful for me to imagine that I had something about me that was like, inherently wicked and to be punished. And so I did my best to hide it. But
Right.
as we know, when people are hiding the truth of who they are, it is, 47% of trans youth attempt suicide. And so
Mhm.
it just got harder and harder the older I got, the more I was lying. I was doing a lot of masking too in terms of my neurodivergence. So my whole life was just a facade,
Yeah.
and that will break you down faster than anything else.
Right.
So by the time I was in college, I finally went to see a therapist. I was so scared that my
Mhm.
parents were going to find out that I was seeing a therapist that I made the therapist like promise to not like make any record of seeing me.
Right.
And she ended up giving me an antidepressant, which I was 21 at the time.
Mhm.
And now we know that antidepressants can increase suicidality in young people. At that point, it was late 90s. They didn't have that research yet. And so my suicidality went like through the roof as soon as I
Wow.
started taking that. And they didn't know, right? So she just thought she was helping me. But
Right.
I had not been actively suicidal. I had been more in the camp of suicidal ideation before I
Yeah.
started taking the antidepressants. But once I started taking the antidepressants, I was like actively planning. And when I was 22, I tried coming out to a family member, and the conversation did not go well. And I
Mhm.
felt like I didn't know any like happy queer people who were living meaningful lives, so I didn't think it would be possible to like uh move from my family and live my own life. I thought I just was gonna like ruin their life and they were gonna think I was terrible. So I just felt like there weren't any options.
Wow.
And I did attempt suicide at that point.
Mhm.
Some friends ended up finding me like 11 hours later. It was an overdose, and um, it was too late for them to pump my stomach, and I had been unconscious. And so the doctors were kind of like, we're not really sure why you regained consciousness. And
Oh,
I
wow.
had a really wild and beautiful near-death experience.
Mhm.
And I feel like it wasn't my choice of to come back. I would have been delighted to stay where I was.
Yeah.
Um, but I did regain consciousness, and And that was one of the hardest things that has ever happened to me. I think worse than anything else was like making peace with moving on from this life and then being like yanked back in. I was so devastated.
Mm.
But like I said, I have since then um, slowly but surely created a life that does feel worth living. So it's been a wild road.
Wow. What made it so hard? I mean, what made it so, I guess the same things, the reason that you didn't want to be here is what made it hard to come back to it because you were coming back to the same
Well, it was
things.
worse than before the overdose because before the overdose, I felt like I had an option to
Right.
reduce my suffering. I could
Right.
die. But after I woke back up, I was like, well, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
I just felt like it would be too painful to get all ready again and
Mhm.
like think I was free and then have to come back. Like I just I would not have been able to tolerate a second failed attempt. And
Right.
so it felt like an imprisonment,
Mm.
no option to get free. I felt like it was like a death sentence, but it was in a different way.
Yeah.
Death felt better than life.
Wow.
So, yeah,
How long did you feel like that? How long did it take you to get over that feeling? Because I can
yeah.
imagine that's like very difficult.
It was just so, yeah, so crushing. I felt like that until I remember the first day that I didn't feel suicidal, and it was when I was 35. So
That's what,
22 to
13?
35. Yeah.
That's 13 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot.
It was awful. Yeah.
And you mentioned your family, so that wasn't a support system for you to get through that. What about the
Mm-mm.
friends that found you? Were you guys of similar belief? Were they helpful in the process of,
Yeah, they did their best. They were young people like
yeah,
me going
yeah.
through it, right? We were all actually in New Orleans teaching
Mhm.
through an AmeriCorps program. So everyone was struggling.
Yeah.
Everybody was, really at capacity and overwhelmed. And they did their best, but they didn't have much to offer, which I
Yeah.
totally understand. And after, getting me to the hospital, I was put on medication before I even gained consciousness.
Hmm.
So there was already antipsychotics and lithium and antidepressants
Mm.
in my system when I woke up, and I was not myself.
Mm.
And that is one of the most painful pieces of it for me is that for 2.5 years following that attempt, I don't remember it, but a family member came and like picked me up and brought me home. And 2.5 years of my life, I have like three memories from
Oh,
because I was
wow.
so highly medicated and I lost a lot of friendships
Hmm.
and I feel really sad because I don't know what happened, right? I may have been just an awful person to people
Right.
that I loved, and I'll never know.
Yeah, so there's no way you weren't able to connect with any of those people to ask, what was it?
Yeah, there were several people that I reached out to and just said, like, I'm off of the medicine now. I don't know
Right.
what happened. Like, please tell me. But they were like, I'm not in communication with you anymore, kind of like cut me off, right?
Oh,
And I
wow.
respect that. I
Yeah.
really, as in your work, there are times when we do need to cut people off. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
respect anybody who needed to cut me off. And I will always be sorry for anything that I said or did.
Right.
And it's hard to know that there's 2.5 years of my life that I don't know what happened.
Yeah. And that's brave to be able to even with you not knowing to be able to accept that you said I may have been an awful person. Sometimes people get it mixed up with the no contact and things. I am not angry myself with anyone that has cut me off.
Yeah,
Even if I don't understand, I always hope that they have found some kind of peace because I know even for me, I can be a lot for me, especially if I'm going through something. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm sick of me. I can only
Yeah.
imagine that you're sick of me, and
Yeah, I
it's
need a break
okay.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I need a break from me, but I
Yeah.
can't get a break from me. So
Yeah.
take your break.
Yeah.
Please, please.
Yeah. Yeah. I really respect people's capacity.
Yeah,
That's where the nervous system information has been so helpful for me because it just
yeah,
reminds me like if you are not feeling safe,
yeah,
then you are not making decisions. And so
yeah,
anything that you do or say when you're not feeling safe, that's not you.
yeah.
It's just your nervous system trying to keep you alive. And so
Right,
if people need to cut me off, I really have come to grips with the fact that my family of origin, that connection with Christianity was really life-giving for them. It
yes,
helped them to feel like it was worth living. And
yes,
so for me to come onto this planet into their lives and be like, if you love me, you would give up this thing that's making it possible for you to be on this planet. Like, how dare
right,
I?
right,
Like just because genetics happened,
right,
doesn't mean they need to let go of this thing. And that's a controversial perspective, especially in the queer community. But
right,
I really feel like everybody can do only what they can do. And I'm not here to say I know how anybody else should live their life.
right,
Um, I just know that so far, to keep myself on the planet, this is how I've been able to do it. And I
right.
respect anything that anybody else has had to do.
But as you say that, I'll play devil's advocate a little bit here. As you say that, it's always interesting that we would have to take that stance and understand their position in life. Shouldn't it be, and I shouldn't use the word should, but
Shit all over it, as my teacher
shouldn't
says.
all over the place, shouldn't all over ourselves. But at the same time, it's like, wouldn't it be nice if they took the same perspective about your life or my life? I have a daughter, and not to make this about the LGBTQ plus, IA plus community. I have a daughter that's a part of that community. And we've both had to come to a different understanding on both sides. She's kind of like, I don't understand why you don't understand certain things. And I'm like, well, you have to also understand that wrong or right, I had a different vision for your life also. So as much as you have to grieve a process, I have to grieve a process too. So respect the way I have to walk through it. I'll respect the way you walk through it, and let's come to this together. And she's one of my best friends. So but that's not even about life choice. That's a relational thing, period. You're not going to agree with everybody that you're in relationship with, whether it's friends, family, or romantic partners.
Hmm.
And so, with that being said, how much of their beliefs and their ideology contributed to your desire to no longer be here?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, 100%.
Yeah,
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 yeah, 100%.
yeah.
Um,
But was it the way that they communicated the things with you, or was it just
well, when you're a child, you just believe that your parents and your adults are telling you the truth.
right,
So
right,
if they say God hates queer people, you don't know how to question that.
right,
Because if they're saying it, and then they're like, and this Bible says it, and every teacher you have, I was in a unique circumstance because I was so in this tiny, tiny community where my
right,
school and my church and my home were the only places that I interacted with. Right.
right.
We did theater, but it was Christian youth theater. So it was
Yeah,
everything. So I had never met a non-believer until
right.
I was in my 20s.
Mm,
So I didn't even know that anything existed outside. I didn't listen to secular music. I didn't read secular books.
mm,
I didn't see any secular media, right? So I just thought that was true. and I didn't know how to question it. And that's where I think, you sort of, with this devil's advocate piece at the beginning of this line of thinking, you thought, shouldn't they, you know, respect you? And
Mm-hmm.
I think respect is a really tricky word to use when we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about how we treat other people. I really prefer to use the word capacity, because
Mm-hmm.
respect indicates that you're in your frontal lobe.
Mm-hmm.
If I have the capacity to engage with something that's so higher order, like respect, it means I have the ability to take the perspective of someone else. I have the ability to hold two opposing truths. These are very high order
Yeah.
cognitive capabilities. And when I'm scared and I'm in my lower brain, I do not have access to respect. So I
Right.
am never going to ask anybody to respect me as a blanket statement, because I, if I'm asking them to do something out of their capacity, that, in my opinion, is cruel. That's a form of violence.
Right.
So if I'm with a little kid who is so scared and I tell them, you need to, go onto a stage and sing a song,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell them, you should be able to do it. Don't be afraid. That's
Mm-hmm.
cruel,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can see they don't have the capacity. They're in their lower brain. They're going to open their mouth. Nothing's going to come out of their mouth, right? Or they're going to have some sort of long-term trauma if I drag them up onto that stage,
Right.
right? And I really believe that we need to think about that with adults too.
Mm-hmm.
Our partners, our parents, our um, friends, to always be checking in with, where are you at capacity wise? Even you and I, when we first met, we talked about, where were you going to be at capacity wise about talking about these subjects?
Right.
And I didn't say to you, well, if you're not going to talk about it and, da da da, then I'm not going to be on your podcast, because you should have the guts to talk about anything that's right. I said,
Right.
okay, well, you might not have the capacity. And I really care about
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging my own and the capacity of others. There's days when someone may, use a different pronoun for me, and I just let it slide because I don't have the capacity to have an interaction. And there's some days when, I might just interact with my family and have them say something that really doesn't feel, respectful or affirming or whatever. And I just let it slide because I don't have the capacity to have a, a difficult conversation. Right. And I really care about acknowledging that if you can't respect me, then it means you're very scared.
Mm-hmm.
And we can look at this about how people treat queer people, about how people interact with racism,
Mm-hmm.
ableism, all sexism, all the things. If you are engaging in anything that could be perceived anywhere from disrespectful to violent, you
Right.
are in your lower brain. Just end of discussion.
Wow. Yeah, because I wouldn't have, you mentioned racism. I don't think I would have looked at it that way. I think I understand it because there's some people that are just raised in thinking certain things that I'm not getting ready to try to force you to love all black people all of a sudden because, or, so I get it conceptually. I guess I just want, how do you personally have these conversations with people and keep yourself in such a loving place? Because it sounds like it's a loving place. It sounds like such a beautiful place. I can't say I'm there all the time. So,
Well, I think what's really important is to acknowledge that there is a lot of grief
mm,
to be had
mhm,
around the fact that we happen to be born into bodies that were wired
right.
to fight
Mm,
and defend and attack and be violent, and that we were born into a planet that is organized according to power and domination,
mhm,
right? This painful. That's
right.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that heartbreak, that grief around, gosh, what is this world and what is this system and why do we have these nervous systems that do like this and why do we have these systems of oppression and domination?
Right,
That is work that I do every day,
right.
right? To say that breaks my heart and I don't see anybody who is worth um, oppressing.
Yeah.
I just have never met a person that I wanted to push down. And it is confusing and it's painful and it is, there's anger about the fact that that's the kind of world that we live in.
Yeah.
So I think, the amount of time that I spend really acknowledging and validating and, listening to my grief,
Hmm.
that extends my capacity to grieve with the people who are on the other side of that, and that brings in again that use of the pronoun we and us and ours, because when we oppress each other, we all are at the bottom of the pit suffering, right?
Right.
Whether we're the one who's doing it or that we're the one experiencing it. And I know that to be true because I oppressed myself for
Hmm.
most of my life. And that felt way worse than being oppressed.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. I guess, again, I can't help but feel the love. You're such a genuine person. And I know me personally, I desire to stay in that place. But when the hurts keep coming, the offenses keep coming, I'm now learning how to um, guard myself, not cut everybody off, but limit
Mhm,
access, make
mhm,
sure that I'm aligned with certain people, not share so much. I am a recovering oversharer. I will tell everybody everything. And then
mhm,
realizing that in doing that, everybody doesn't share the same beliefs that you do. And so people do tend to, they can weaponize the information
mhm,
that you've given them.
mhm,
So, how do you stay in that place? I know you talked about going through your own grief process before, but what
mhm.
else do you do to stay in that place?
You know, I spending a lot of time validating myself
Hmm.
really helps. Spending my whole workday with people who are also in the thick of
Mm.
it, right? And
Yeah.
seeing and validating their pain and their confusion. I think that
Mm.
helps too because I never feel alone.
Right.
And then I think for me, sort of the overlap of um, understanding how the nervous system works took
Hmm.
all the blame and shame out of it for me.
Hmm.
Because if I know that when someone's scared, they don't have access to respect or compassion or thoughtfulness or,
Right.
choice, even they're not making a decision. They are literally an alligator. And that's not woo woo. That's
Right.
what's
That's
called the
science.
amygdala hijack.
Yeah.
And it's just the same mechanism that when you put your hand on a hot stove, you just pull it off,
Right.
right? So
Right.
when I'm scared, I might say to someone, you're going to hell. And if I'm scared, I might say to someone, I might hurt somebody physically, right? Because I'm going straight to the motor part of my brain. I'm not
Mm.
going to the frontal lobe where I'm going to make decisions. So understanding that really just like changed everything for me. When
Hmm.
I'm interacting with someone who's upset at me, I just am like, hello, alligator. I just picture a little alligator, and I would never go into an alligator enclosure and say, listen, you are not being respectful to me. And I'm going to tie this stake to my hand and I'm going to put it into your mouth and you should not bite.
Right.
If you respect me and if you're a good person, then you will
Right.
not bite me. Like that would be so just stupid, right? And
Right.
so I just watch and I see, am I an alligator or are you an alligator? If
Yeah.
either of us are alligators, I am not going to keep talking. I am not going to ask anybody to do anything. If I'm an
Right.
alligator, I'm going to take me into the kitchen. I'm going to get myself an ice pack. I'm going
Right.
to pat myself until I am a human again. If
Right.
I see someone else who's an alligator, I am going to toss some snacks and ice pack around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to lower my voice and I'm going to back away slowly. I am not going to talk with an alligator, right?
Right.
So that's a huge change that
Yeah.
just allows me, I'm not doing any mental gymnastics. I'm not going, oh, they were hurt at one point in their life and that's why they're hurting me, right? I'm just
Mm.
going, oh, they're in their lower brain, so they're not making a decision. That way, I don't have to take anything personally. If an
Okay.
alligator bit me and I had a steak wrapped in my hand, and my hand was in
Well,
their mouth, I would not be like, that was a really awful alligator. I'd be like,
right. Right.
friend, you did something that made sense. So that removed a lot of the pain around it for me. Um, but then also, I don't take it so far like some maybe spiritual communities might be. I don't ever like hang out with alligators,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So just because I understand you're an alligator doesn't mean that I'm going to hang out with you. So
Right.
if you've established to me that you're an alligator, more than 5 times out of 10, more than 2 times out of
Right.
10, then we're probably not hanging out anymore, right?
Right.
And if we
Right.
are hanging out, there is a big fence between us,
Yeah.
and I am just like keeping my voice low and I'm not making eye contact, and I'm not really there.
Right.
So that's a big difference too, because then I'm not getting myself into like over and over and over. That's what I think some of these like more, some spiritual groups who are like, oh, well, they were hurt and, just like forgive them. It's like, yeah, and
And right.
don't keep hanging
Boundaries.
out with them.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a person who's ever going to tell someone like, "Oh, you have to stay in contact with your parents because they're your blood family." No.
No.
No. Everybody, is separate humans. If a relationship is like I said, if they're just constantly showing up as alligator, or like you mentioned, if every time you hang out with them, you become an alligator, that's information too,
Right.
and you should have the grace to remove yourself from that
Right.
relationship.
Exactly. Right. And do the work to find out why you're biting people's hands off.
Yes,
What's going
yes,
on here?
yes, absolutely. So
Yeah.
that really helps. I mean, I do explore like, Buddhist and Hindu and, mystic traditions, and I'm interested in non-duality, but in real time, when you're scared or upset, the easiest thing for me is, oh, I'm an alligator or they're an
Yeah.
alligator. Let me go take
Yeah.
care.
Yeah, well, you just simplify it because I feel myself going down that journey, but I'll still go through well, they were hurt this way, they were
Mm,
hurt, and then they did this, and like you said, the mental gymnastics. It's like
yeah,
who has time
yeah,
to go
yeah,
through all of that?
yeah,
I don't. And the truth is, I don't really know because I
yeah,
wasn't there
yeah,
anyway. So I'm
yeah.
only speculating or
Mm-hmm,
taking the information that they gave me.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
I know we have some time restraints here. So if there was anything for you to share with someone, a friend, family member, or anything dealing with a person, I don't even know where to start because there's so many things, unique things about you. And like I said, I don't want to make it about one thing and leave out all the other. But I think you just said a lot with dealing with people and how to extend love to all mankind.
Yeah, and it's nice because it's not even love,
Yeah,
right? It's just like honest.
yeah,
Like we have nervous systems. They
yeah,
are older than us. They're
yeah,
millions of years old, and they affect our behavior. They're called
Yeah.
the autonomic nervous system because it's automatic. It's happening
Yeah.
without our conscious control. If we could
Right.
bring that understanding to our day-to-day lives, we would be far less likely to have as much violence as we do towards
Right.
ourselves internally when we are
Others.
beating up ourselves
Yeah.
or towards others, right? To just be like, can we take care of the alligators? If
Yeah.
we can do that, we're going to really reduce that violence.
Right. I'm glad you said even towards ourselves, because a lot of times we don't realize that we're judging ourselves and treating ourselves
Yep,
badly,
yep,
and your own body is just responding
yep,
to what's around them. So,
yep.
well, I thank you so much for joining me today. There's so many other things, so chances of me having you back later on down the line,
Okay,
they're high.
I'd love to.
So thank you again for joining us. Um, I can go through and add the outro. So just everyone, where can they, if someone wants to work with you,
Mhm.
um,
Yep,
is
you can go
this
to my website,
okay?
therootedcoop.com,
All
and
right.
you can book a free call. We can meet each other and see if there's a match. And then also have a lot of free resources on my YouTube channel, which is
Okay.
also The Rooted Co-op.
And I will make sure all of that are in the show notes so that they can
Thank you,
find you.
Hillary.
Well, thank you again. And I just hope you have a wonderful day and all the things. Thanks for sharing. I know I've already learned some things, and so I'm gonna go and look at all the alligators.
That's right.
What are you an alligator? You know? Right.
Thank you.
All righty. And if those of you are listening, and I can't find my notes, so I'll add it at the end, but you can reach out to Gazette and work and see if she wants to work in whatever. I don't know. I'm gonna go because I can't think straight anymore.
You're
And just I
awesome.
hope you have a good one. And
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you for everything.